Stephen, you hinted at it, so let's talk about the biggest news story of the month and possibly even of the quarter, and that is the retirement of Pat Gelsinger as the Intel CEO and chairman of the board, effective immediately. David Zinsner, who was formerly serving as the CFO, and Michelle Johnston, or MJ Holthaus, who had newly been named as CEO of the Intel Products subunit, will now be serving as co CEOs during this interim search. And there's also an interim director of the board. Gelsinger has been the CEO of Intel since 2021. And you may recall we broke that news on the rundown with Steven's amazing shocked face. And ever since then, he's been focused on returning Intel to dominance in the chip market while also facing headwinds from industry transitions to mobile computing and now to AI computing. And of course, stock prices rose on the news of Pat's retirement. Stephen, let's be fair. There's a ton that we have to unpack in this story, but I'm going to let you start. Why is Pat retiring?
Um, Pat's retiring because, at least if the rumor mongers are to be believed, and I mean, why wouldn't we believe the rumor mongers? They sound credible. If the rumor mongers are to be believed, Pat was given the choice at the last board meeting of either seeing his self body be pushed out the door or walking out semi gracefully. And apparently, he chose to walk out gracefully. But of course, everyone is speculating that it was not his choice to retire. I think that the most obvious reason for this is that Pat Gelsinger is, as they say, a mensch and not the kind of person who would walk out on the company that he's trying to save before he completes saving it. That's really not his speed. As we discussed yesterday on Tech Strong Gang with Camberly Bates, who knows Pat, I also have spoken with him many times. This is someone who is not a cut and run kind of CEO. In fact, he's probably the best CEO any of us have ever encountered in the tech industry. And to have him suddenly retire on allegedly Sunday of a holiday weekend with no notice is not really Pat's speed. So let's assume that the rumor mongers are mongering rumors properly, and Intel pushed him, or the Intel board pushed him out. Why would they do this? Well, I think it's safe to say, as our colleague Olivier Blanchard said over yesterday and in many media appearances, the board and Wall Street simply weren't happy with the speed of Pat's turnaround of Intel. Now, I can see that. It's been a while. That being said, Pat had a big job in front of him. He was basically, and again, this is somebody who knew what he was getting into. He came into Intel knowing that the company was woefully behind on manufacturing, woefully behind on chip design, bloated with too many products and too many divisions, and probably too many employees, as much as that breaks my heart to say it, and needed to be cleaned up. Intel found, in my opinion, the right guy for the job because, of course, Pat, being a former Intel CTO and somebody who had been there literally since high school, had unrivaled credibility. He also really deeply understood the company and its products and the market, having served as VMware's CEO, you'll remember as well. And he was somebody who could come in there and basically make the decisions that needed to be done and get the troops rallied behind him to make those changes, even though they weren't popular. Now, I have spoken to some people who have been let go from Intel in the last few years, and even those people have generally said that they felt that Pat was making the right decision for the company, even though it was a very painful decision for themselves and their families and their product lines in many cases. Essentially, they said, if this thing is going to be saved, Pat's doing what needs to be done to save it. But one thing Wall Street doesn't like is short-term pain to fix long-term problems. Ask Michael Dell, who took the whole company private in order to set that ship in the right direction. Well, Intel wasn't about to do that because, of course, it's a very capital-intensive business. They couldn't exactly go private. But what they were able to do is to set an aggressive timeline to develop not just competitive, but world beating chip fabrication capabilities, 5 process nodes in 4 years. They created this IDM manufacturing strategy, which would see Intel becoming a real competitor to TSMC among third party customers. They even embraced producing their own products on TSMC's advanced nodes in order to give the consumer division, especially, competitive products, which I should note they now have. If you look at a lot of the talk, especially on laptop chips and so on, Intel is right there with very, very good products. All of this stuff was really starting to hit, but what wasn't hitting was the numbers and the stock price. And so it goes, as Kurt Vonnegut would say. So it goes. There goes Pat Gelsinger. The question is, what comes next? And I'm not sure if you have any speculation on that, Tom.
I hope that Pat gets to go to a nice, quiet cabin away from any technology where he can reflect on his retirement. And then in 3 months, he picks up a folding chair, and just like WWE, he comes back in to clean house. No, that's not going to happen. I think that much like every other thing that I've ever seen, Pat's going to exit gracefully, like we've already mentioned. And I'm going to take my Pat fanboy cap off here for a minute. Pat's problem is that he is not a magician because, as you mentioned, Wall Street hates the fact that quarter after quarter they didn't make money. Now, they might make money in 10 years, but that's not important right now. What's important is that my stock portfolio right now looks like crap, and you need to fix that. And why weren't you thinking about AI in 2015? Because NVIDIA is making so much money right now that we could be making. And why didn't you think about the iPhone in 2004 when we could have been making mobile chips this whole time? And do you see the problem? They have myopia for the current quarter, but you were supposed to be a wizard and think of this stuff before nobody could think of it before, but you don't want to wait to give him a chance to pay this off. And that's basically what we're seeing now, is that the investors are rewarding the board for kicking out the person that they see as responsible for not turning the ship fast enough, the nerd that understands the technology and is bartered for the CHIPS Act and all these other things. And who did you put in charge? The CFO. You remember, Bob Swan was the CFO for a while. Why did you get rid of Bob Swan and hire Pat Gelsinger? Oh, that's right. I'm going to quote a good friend of mine, Michael Bouchon. Nobody cuts their way back into relevance. That was said to me months ago, and it is absolutely prescient. You cannot cut yourself back into relevance. What are they going to do? Well, we know they can't sell the foundries right now. It's going to cost them $8 billion if they do. So they're going to have to invest in those. They're going to have to keep them going. Maybe they spin them off into a different business unit. The fact that MJ was named as like an Intel product CEO before this big news came out means that they know that they're going to have to figure out a way to sell that stuff. And I don't think that they're going to be able to sell anymore. So what are they going to do? Are they going to invest in something? Well, they're behind in the mobile race. In fact, I don't know that they'll ever catch up because now the companies that are the biggest mobile producers are either beholden to Qualcomm or they're just going to make their own chips. And that's an ARM world. Okay. Well, let's be fair. That one's probably a done deal. What about AI? Well, there's a possibility that they can compete, but they've got to innovate. They've got to do something that's different enough from NVIDIA that people are going to want to pick them. And they have a big mountain to climb. Can they? Is the biggest question. I don't know. But are you going to bet the whole future of the company on a fad that might burn out in 3 years? And yes, I know that there are a lot of people out there right now that saying that AI is absolutely transformative and it's going to change the way that everybody does business and things like that. Just like every other thing that's going to change the way that we do business, cryptocurrency and SDN and flash storage and I don't know what other fairy dust and unicorn farts that we've been talking about for years. Yes, I sound a little bit pessimistic because I watch good people get tossed aside because the quarterly results weren't good. And note that his announcement was retired at the beginning of Q4 of this year, which means they're hoping for a 90-day turnaround to float those stock prices up just a little bit higher before the end of the year. But what? I was speculating with somebody last night. Do they already have a replacement in mind? Because why would you cut the guy right before the end of the quarter? unless you kind of maybe already have somebody in mind, or at least a couple people that you're going to go interview real quick. And you want to start 2025 off with a bang by announcing a brand new CEO who's going to change the way we do things. Except, who are you going to find? Because now you've already proven that the job is poison, that you're not going to give anybody time to work with it. So are you going to go find somebody from outside of Intel that doesn't know what they're doing, who has no like relevance to the chip market, who's just a good manager? Are you hoping that you're going to find a Tim Cook to take over for Steve Jobs? Because you're not going to find them.
Yeah, that's going to be the real problem. Is in order to take this job on, and certainly some people have suggested that MJ should be the new Intel CEO. Personally, I think she is absolutely just great. I don't wish that job on her though. So um, I suspect that that's not going to happen. I also suspect that it's not going to be a CFO that comes in a la Bob Swan to please Wall Street and run the company into a wall. I think that they are looking for other people, but I don't think they have one. If they had one, they probably wouldn't have given this ultimatum to him without having that person lined up. Instead, I think that basically time ran out from a Wall Street perspective. Maybe that there was some arbitrary number set. Maybe some of the investment folks had basically drawn a line in the sand and said, "Hey, Intel board, we're going to devalue you. We're going to, something." That they just absolutely had to act on, and it really makes them look bad. I will point out as well, though, again, Olivier here at Futurum was looking into this question. Um, it's not like they're going to be able to have somebody else come in and really turn the ship faster than it was already turning. It's not like this is really dramatically going to improve Intel's competitiveness in the market. And as Daniel Newman pointed out, it's not like this is going to actually change anything for AMD or Qualcomm or TSMC or any of these companies in the short term. The truth is that these are really big companies with really tremendous momentum behind them. I actually would like to extrapolate a little further on that. There's been some suggestions that maybe Intel's fifth process node, 18A, which would put them firmly ahead of TSMC, is not working out as well as we had hoped. Again, the head of that group was recently either quit or let go a few months ago. That didn't bode well at the time, and it certainly doesn't bode well with this news. The same thing can be said with some of the reaction from gamers for Intel's latest gaming CPUs. They've underperformed their expectations. A lot of people are looking to AMD. In the HPC space, we just saw supercomputing, where AMD really put on a great show, taking the lead in shipping GPU parts in supercomputers and really showing that they can compete with NVIDIA in that space, while Intel is essentially on the sidelines, at least on the GPU side, though interestingly, not necessarily on the CPU side, where they actually showed pretty well. So a lot of these things don't bode well. But that being said, Intel under Gelsinger has actually made a lot of great moves. 18A is being developed, and it is way ahead of TSMC. Intel has refocused on many core designs, not the code name for the Opteron, but the code name for Stephen's name for lots and lots of cores, as opposed to hyperthreading. They've been removing hyperthreading and focusing on creating chips that use tons of cores. Their efficiency core is very, very impressive, and they've previewed some incredible platforms that use on the Xeon side that use tons of efficiency cores. They are also leaning into that on the mobile PC side as well as the desktop PC side. Intel's Habana stuff has not yet taken off, but I think 2025 is going to be the year of AI applications and AI inferencing, and the Habana Gaudi 3 looks really good for that. The same thing can be said for a lot of Intel's core CPUs. I think that the company is actually just about to turn that corner. And it's really too bad that Pat won't be the CEO to enjoy that success. But I wouldn't be surprised if 2025's story is not look at what became of the parts of Intel, but is in fact, whoa, like look at Intel. Wow. Tom, do you think that's going to happen?
I hope so. I think that what we want out of this is just a happy ending for everybody. We want Intel to succeed. We want Pat to be happy. We want the industry to stop cannibalizing their CEOs just because someone missed a month of numbers or something like that.